You know that little voice inside your head? The one that's kind of narrating your life, judging your decisions, and reacting to pretty much everything? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on what that voice is really saying. We're going to talk about how these internal scripts, these little sentences, actually build the foundation of your entire emotional world. So let's just start with this one big question. What if your feelings, anxiety, anger, even happiness, aren't just random things that happen to you? What if they're the direct result of sentences you're telling yourself, maybe without even realizing it? This is the whole idea behind a really powerful approach called rational emotive behavior therapy, and it's all about how our thoughts create our feelings. Okay, so let's dig in and define what we're actually talking about here. What are these internal sentences, and why do they have such a tight grip on us? So, according to the psychologist Albert Ellis, the guy who created this therapy, these internalized sentences are a very specific kind of thought. They're loaded with bias, with judgment, with really strong opinions. But here's the part that's a total game changer. For all practical purposes, these sentences are your emotions. It's a pretty wild idea when you first hear it, right? This really breaks it down. Our feelings don't just pop up out of the blue. You don't just catch a case of anxiety like you'd catch a cold. Nope. Instead, we are actively, though, often unconsciously, creating our own emotions through the biased and judgmental thoughts we have about the things that happen to us. And this quote from Ellis himself just hits the nail on the head. Our emotions come straight from our ideas and beliefs. But you know what the most hopeful part is? They can be radically changed just by changing the way we think. That's huge. Okay, so that's the theory. But how does this play out in the real world? Let's look at a really clear example to see these internal scripts in action. Check this out. It's a perfect example. The event is exactly the same in both scenarios. A job interview. But look at the internal scripts. The first one, what if I make a fool of myself? That would be awful. That leads straight to anxiety. But the second one, what if I do great and get the job? That would be wonderful. That leads to excitement. Same event, totally different feelings. The only thing that changed was the sentence you told yourself. So where do we even get these scripts? I mean, we aren't born with them. We pick them up as we go. From our parents, from things that happened when we were kids, from all the messages society throws at us. And over time, they get so automatic, they don't even feel like choices anymore. They just feel like the truth. They become these deeply ingrained habits of thought. But here is the really, really good news. Just because a habit is ingrained doesn't mean it's permanent. We can absolutely learn to challenge and rewrite these scripts. So let's talk about how to do that. Okay, take a look at this list. Do any of these sound familiar? These are some of the most common self-defeating scripts that Albert Ellis pointed out. Things like, I absolutely need everyone to like me, or it's a total catastrophe if things don't go my way. Just being able to spot these scripts running in your own mind is the first massive step to taking away their power. And let's be crystal clear about something. The goal here is not to become some unfeeling robot, not at all. The point is to challenge the specific, irrational thoughts that create needless pain. The kind of self-defeating feelings like chronic anxiety or rage that just hold you back. So how do you actually do this? Well, here's a simple 4-step playbook. First, when you feel that painful emotion creeping in, just stop and identify the exact sentence you're telling yourself. Step 2, question it. Ask yourself, is this thought actually helping me right now? Is it even rational? 3, demand evidence. Where's the proof that this has to be true? And finally, dispute and replace. Literally argue against that irrational idea and swap it out for a more constructive one. And this is such an important distinction. The goal isn't to get rid of all intense feelings. Intense joy, profound love, even deep sadness. That's all part of a rich, full life. What we're targeting here are the emotions that are exaggerated, the ones that are disorganizing and just excessive, the kind that trip you up and cause suffering for no good reason. All right, let's bring it all home, because the most empowering part of this whole approach is that it puts the tools for change right in your own hands. Think about it this way. Just like you can unlearn a bad golf swing or a bad habit when you're cooking, you can unlearn old habits of thought. It definitely takes practice, it takes being conscious about it, but this is a skill you can absolutely build. You can learn to become your own therapist, managing your emotional life from the inside out. Here's a perfect before and after of what this looks like. The old script might scream, I made a mistake, so I am a worthless person. It's just a harsh black and white judgment. But the new, rewritten script says, I made a mistake, that's not great, but it doesn't define who I am as a person. You see the huge difference there? One leads to shame and feeling stuck, the other leads to solving the problem and having some self-respect. And this kind of practice can lead to some really profound changes. The source material shares this powerful story about a patient named Geraldine. After working on these techniques, she was actually able to look at herself in the mirror and say this. She literally rewrote her own script from self-blame to self-acceptance. And that right there, that's the whole point. So if you only take one thing away from all this, please let it be this. You are not a passive victim of your emotions. You are the author of the sentences that create them. And that means you hold the pen. You have the power to shape your own emotional destiny. That voice in your head is telling a story, all day, every day. It's a story about you and your life. And by paying attention to it, by challenging it, and by consciously choosing your words, you get to be the editor of that story. So the question I'll leave you with is this. What's the first line you're going to rewrite?